In episode 7, Claudia is continuing her plan to kill off Lestat and, break free of his hold on her and Louis. Over time, they sort of just figure out what to do, while Lestat is, somewhat ignorant to her plan. And after a while, they decide that they should throw a Mardi Gras style celebration, even though Mardi Gras had just happened. But they decided to do this anyway, so they kind of talked to the mayor to throw this party. And of course, with quite a bit of persuasion, probably related to their vampire powers, they get this done as sort of a way of capitalizing off of the city's perception of, the three of them. Later on, this party is being thrown, and it's very extravagant. Everyone is kind of dressed very bougie, per se, like it's 18th century France. Especially Lestat and Louis dressed very much dressed up, and they just have a lot of fun with it. And they specifically pick certain people who, quote, want to be, eternally youthful, and clearly are going to, feed on them later after, they have them alone. So, through all of that, in the end, they bring the selected people over, including the mayor himself, to to their house for this private gathering. And of course, they start feeding on them. And yet again, the show every now and then proves to me just how gory you can get, even if it's just about vampires who usually just bite people. Like, I think Claudia specifically rips off somebody's jaw. No, I think it's Lestat. After that, the three of them split up and start feeding on the other people who've, of course, started to run away when they realize just how screwed they are. But it doesn't really work for them, obviously. After this, Louis, he has one of the people there who was, one half of a set of twins at the party, and says that he has them saved for Lestat. And Lestat goes to bite him, but after poking him with his fingernail and sniffing the blood, he realizes that it's poisoned, and, tries to beat the shit out of both Louis and Claudia with the help of the woman he turned into a vampire and didn't kill, even though they wanted him to kill her. But as this is happening, it turns out that Claudia had poisoned another person who Lestat already bit, that being the mayor himself. And as Lestat convulses in pain through the poison, Claudia kills the woman with a fire poker through the chest, and she leaves Louis to kill Lestat, or they finish him off, and he slits his throat with a razor right after Lestat says that he's thankful that it was him who finished him off. After this, Louis mentions to Daniel in the present day that he put Lestat's body in a trunk and left him for the garbage people, while he and Claudia went off on their own, abandoning New Orleans. After this, Daniel sort of, over a bit of conversation, reveals that he's catching on to Louis' quote bullshit, because he mentions how he knows, how the garbage works, and they take it to the dump instead of, some spot in the middle of nowhere. And he also knows that one of the things that feeds on garbage at the dump are rats, and Lestat could easily still be alive and feed off the rats, which Louis seemed to have known, through Daniel's logic. And he continues confronting him on this next to the cut pages from another one of Claudia's diaries, suggesting that she probably knew Louis did this as well, or at least just knew that he was very hesitant about killing Lestat. And after this, as they sort of walk over to some sort of Zen garden type of thing inside Louis' apartment, his servant, who we of course have seen throughout this entire show so far, is able to fly, or at least levitate, and shows quite some commanding attitude towards Daniel. And through some hints here and there, he reveals just who he is, with Louis, really pointed it out, that not only was the assistant there that night when they first met in the 70s, but the servant is named Armand, and not, I think his name at first was Rashid, but his real name is Armand, who is apparently a character from the books, because I looked it up, because obviously you probably would be confused if you didn't read the books, just like I was confused a bit. And that was part 1 of season 1. I wasn't fully expecting for this to be a sort of parts 1 and 2 situation, but I guess that's just how it is. I was almost thinking that, from what I heard about the original book story, that maybe the rest of the book could be covered in the last few episodes. But I guess not. At least maybe they'll focus more on it and add more detail to it with part 2, which will likely be out next year. I assume, it's, part 1 and 2, not just seasons. But oh well. I can wait, mostly. But in all, I really like the show so far. It obviously has slight problems that House of the Dragon had with its light time skipping, but I think that's not as bad as House of the Dragon's time skipping was. I think there's a lot in each episode for the most part, except for a couple, but oh well. It's a very interesting story to me, even though I wasn't inherently interested in the book, but sometimes a book has to grip me a little bit more especially when it's outside of a genre that I usually like. And I already knew that, this is more of a dramatic, semi-romantic, horror-esque story, which is something that I'm not a big fan of, at least in book form. Because at least with a romantic movie, I'm not spending too much time with it. But oh well, I still like this. At some point, I should watch the movie adaptation from 1994 with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, which is probably closer to the book, but who knows. Either way, this was a pretty good show so far. Can't wait for the rest. I'm gonna give episode 7 a 9 out of 10. And then finally for season 1, part 1, I'm gonna give that an 8 out of 10. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you stay tuned for more Interview with Vampire content in the future when part 2 comes out. And I also hope you like, comment, and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel out with it being sort of fresh. And I hope you all have a good day. Goodbye.